There's a kind of relationship that doesn't break your heart all at once. It erodes it slowly, piece by piece. It's the relationship with someone who only sees you as useful, not as worthy. You know the type. They call when they need something, but when you're the one in need, suddenly they're too busy, too distant, too unavailable. At first, it's subtle. They make you feel important, needed, and isn't that what we all want? To be needed? But soon you start to notice a pattern. Their kindness is conditional, their attention is selective, and their loyalty, well, that depends on what you can offer. You might tell yourself, maybe they just don't realize it, but let's be honest, deep down you know the truth. They don't care about you the way you care about them. Here's what happens when you keep letting them in. You start shrinking. You question your worth. You wonder if you're only valuable when you're useful. And that is a dangerous place to be. So what do? You name it. You call it what it is, a one-sided relationship. You set boundaries. And most importantly, you remind yourself that you deserve more. You deserve people who don't just show up when they need you, but show up because they see you. Because at the end of the day, real connection isn't about what someone can get from you. It's about what they're willing to give, even when there's nothing in it for them. We all crave connection. It's wired into us. It's part of what makes us human. We want to be seen, heard, and valued. And when someone shows us attention, when they make us feel like we matter, we lean in, we trust, we invest. But not every connection is real. Some people aren't in our lives because they care about us. They're there because we serve a purpose for them. Maybe we're a source of help, comfort, convenience, or even just entertainment. And when that's the case, the connection we feel isn't actually a connection at all. It's an illusion. At first, it doesn't seem that way. These people might seem engaged, interested, even warm. They might text you often, invite you out, laugh at your jokes, and make you feel included. But pay attention to the patterns. Do they only call when they need something? Do they disappear when you're the one struggling? Do they make excuses when you ask for the same kind of support they expect from you? If so, you're not in a relationship, you're in a transaction. The hardest part of recognizing this is that it feels personal. It feels like rejection. You might ask yourself, why am I not worth more to them? Why don't they care the way I do? But hear me when I say this. It's not about you, it's about them. People who build relationships based on utility rather than genuine care aren't capable of offering real connection in the first place. They might not even realize they're doing it, but that doesn't make it any less damaging. And the damage is real. When you believe you're in a meaningful connection with someone who is only using you, it starts to wear on your self-worth. And you start to wonder if you're only valuable when you're being useful. You start to accept crumbs of attention because you think that's all you deserve. You lower your standards because any connection, even a one-sided one, feels better than loneliness. But here's the truth. You are not just a resource. You are not just an option. And real connection, true, deep, meaningful connection will never require you to prove your worth by constantly giving while receiving nothing in return. So if you're feeling the sting of being used, don't blame yourself for believing in the illusion. We all want to see the best in people. But once you recognize the truth, don't ignore it. Because the people who truly care about you, they won't just reach out when they need something. They'll reach out because they see you. And that's the kind of connection worth holding on to. There's an unspoken expectation in healthy relationships, mutual care. It doesn't mean keeping score or measuring every act of kindness, but there's a natural rhythm and ebb and flow where both people contribute. Sometimes you lean on them, sometimes they lean on you, and that's how trust grows. But not everyone operates this way. Some people approach relationships like business deals. Transactional, calculated, and conditional. These are the people who only show up when they need something. When they need your time, your support, your resources, or your energy, they're present, engaged, and even charming. But the moment you need something from them, suddenly they're too busy. Suddenly they're silent. Suddenly their presence fades like a shadow at sunset. At first, you might not notice. Transactional people can be incredibly skilled at making you feel like the relationship is balanced, at least on the surface. They may offer just enough breadcrumbs of attention to keep you invested. A quick, "How are you?" before asking for a favor. A moment of laughter before shifting the conversation to what they need. A text here, a call there. Just enough to create the illusion of reciprocity. But over time, the pattern reveals itself. You begin to realize that their kindness is not generosity, it's strategy. Their affection isn't deep, it's convenient. And their presence in your life is not a commitment, it's a calculation. What makes transactional relationships so harmful is that they often prey on people who are naturally giving. If you're the kind of person who loves to help, who believes in showing up for others, who values relationships deeply, then you might find yourself trapped in these dynamics more often than you'd like to admit. Because when you're a giver, it's easy to make excuses. Maybe they're just going through a hard time. Maybe they don't realize how one-sided this feels. Maybe if I just give a little more, they'll finally appreciate me. But here's the harsh reality. In a transactional relationship, you will never be valued for who you are, only for what you provide. You are not a friend. You are not a priority. You are a resource. And when you start to recognize this truth, it hurts. It stings to realize that someone you've invested in emotionally has only been investing in what they can gain from you. It's a kind of betrayal, not in the dramatic way we often think of betrayal, but in a quieter, more insidious way. It's the betrayal of being treated as replaceable, the betrayal of realizing that if you stopped being useful, they would stop being present. So what do you do? How do you protect yourself from these types of relationships? First, you have to name it. Call it what it is. If you find yourself in a pattern where you are constantly giving and receiving little in return, pay attention. Does this person reach out when they don't need something? Do they check in just to see how you are without an agenda? Would they be there for you in the same way you've been there for them? If the answer is no, it's time to reevaluate. Second, set boundaries. Transactional people thrive on the assumption that you won't say no. Challenge that assumption. The next time they ask for something, pause. Ask yourself, if I needed them right now, would they show up for me? If the answer is no, consider whether you want to continue pouring into an empty cup. And finally, remind yourself that you deserve better. Real relationships are not built on transactions. They are built on care, trust, and a willingness to show up, not because there's something to gain, but because that's what real connection looks like. If you have people in your life who only show up when it's convenient for them, let them go. Not out of anger, not out of resentment, but out of self-respect. You were never meant to be someone's backup plan, safety net, or stepping stone. The people who truly care about you will never need something from you to make your presence in their life worthwhile. There is a kind of loneliness that doesn't come from being alone. It comes from being unseen. It comes from being in relationships where you give, where you show up, where you invest your heart, only to realize that the other person is present in body but absent in spirit. That's what emotional neglect feels like. Emotional neglect is not always loud. It doesn't always come with arguments or dramatic exits. Sometimes it's quiet. It looks like someone nodding while you talk but not really listening. It feels like reaching out for support only to be met with indifference. It's the experience of standing in front of someone, speaking your truth, and realizing they're not really hearing you. At its core, emotional neglect is about a lack of care, not in the practical sense, but in the deep human way we all need to feel valued. It's about relationships where your emotions, your needs, and your experiences are ignored or dismissed. It's not that the person is outright cruel to you, it's that they don't make space for you at all. The subtle signs of emotional neglect doesn't always happen in obvious ways. Sometimes it hides in the little things. They never ask how you're really doing. And if you tell them, they don't engage. They change the subject, give a half-hearted response, or offer surface-level advice instead of real empathy. They expect you to listen to their problems, but when it's your turn, they're distracted, uninterested, or impatient. You feel emotionally alone, even when you're physically together. You walk away from conversations feeling emptier, not fuller. You start second-guessing whether your feelings even matter because every time you express them, they're minimized or ignored. What makes emotional neglect so painful is that it creates a deep sense of invisibility. When someone consistently fails to acknowledge your emotions, it sends the message, you don't matter. Your feelings, your experiences are not important to me. And that is one of the most damaging messages a person can receive. The long-term effects of emotional neglect, being on the receiving end of emotional neglect, isn't just frustrating, it can be deeply harmful to your self-esteem, your mental health, and your ability to form healthy relationships. You start questioning your own worth. When someone repeatedly dismisses your emotions, you might start believing that your feelings are a burden. You may shrink yourself, suppress your needs, and convince yourself that wanting emotional support is too much. Over time, this leads to self-doubt and a loss of confidence in your own emotions. You learn to settle for less when you experience emotional neglect, especially over long periods. You may start normalizing it. You may begin to believe that this is just how relationships work, that deep emotional connection is a luxury, not a necessity. This can lead to staying in one-sided relationships where your emotional needs are never met. You develop a fear of vulnerability. If every time you open up, you're met with indifference, you might stop opening up altogether. You start guarding your emotions, keeping people at arm's length, and avoiding deep conversations. You build walls, not because you don't want connection, but because experience has taught you that vulnerability leads to disappointment. You feel emotionally isolated. One of the cruelest effects of emotional neglect is that it creates a sense of isolation. Even when you're surrounded by people, you could be in a room full of friends, in a relationship, or part of a family. But if no one truly sees you, it's the loneliest feeling in the world. How to break free from emotional neglect: if you recognize yourself in this, if you felt unseen, unheard, or emotionally unimportant, I want you to know this: you deserve more. You deserve to be in relationships where your emotions are valued, where your voice is heard, and where your presence is cherished, not just tolerated. So how do you break free? Acknowledge that it's happening. The first step is recognizing the pattern. Emotional neglect isn't always easy to spot, especially if it's been normalized in your life. But once you see it, you can't unsee it. Pay attention to how you feel in your relationships. Do you feel emotionally fulfilled, or do you feel drained and unimportant? Stop making excuses for them. It's easy to rationalize emotional neglect. Maybe they're just bad at expressing emotions. Maybe they don't realize they're doing it. Maybe if I just try harder, they'll change. But here's the truth. Real connection doesn't require you to beg for basic emotional support. If someone cares about you, they will make the effort. Communicate your needs clearly sometimes. People don't realize they are being emotionally neglectful. If you value the relationship, have an honest conversation. Say, I feel like my emotions aren't really acknowledged in our conversations. I need to feel heard when I share something important. A real friend, partner, or loved one will listen and try to do better. Set boundaries with emotionally unavailable people. If you continuously express your needs and nothing changes, it may be time to set boundaries. That could mean reducing the energy you invest in that relationship, limiting what you share, or even walking away if the neglect is persistent and harmful. Surround yourself with people who see you. There are people in this world who will hear you when you speak, who will care when you struggle, who will celebrate when you succeed, and who will stand beside you simply because they love you, not because you're useful, not because it's convenient, but because your presence in their life is enough. Final thoughts: you deserve to be seen. Emotional neglect is a silent wound. It doesn't leave bruises, but it leaves scars. And if you've been in relationships where you felt unseen, unheard, or unimportant, I want you to know this: your emotions matter, your experiences matter. You matter. You were not put on this earth to shrink yourself into a version that is easier for others to ignore. You deserve relationships where your feelings are acknowledged, where your presence is cherished, and where you are valued, not just for what you do, but for who you are. And if someone in your life can't offer that, then it's time to ask yourself a hard but necessary question. Why am I holding on to someone who lets me feel invisible? Manipulation isn't always obvious. It doesn't always come with bold lies or dramatic betrayals. Sometimes it's subtle. It hides behind flattery, guilt, and obligation. It wears the mask of friendship, love, or support, but underneath, it's designed to control, to take, and to keep you trapped in a one-sided relationship. The hardest part about manipulation is that it doesn't feel like manipulation at first. It feels like connection. It feels like someone caring about you, paying attention to you, and valuing you. But over time, you start to notice patterns that leave you drained, guilty, confused, or questioning yourself. And that's how manipulation works. It shifts the balance of power without you even realizing it's happening. Let's talk about some of the most common patterns of manipulation so you can recognize them before they take hold. One, guilt trapping, turning your kindness against you. Guilt is one of the most powerful tools of manipulation. It preys on your empathy, your kindness, and your natural desire to be a good person. Manipulators use guilt to make you feel responsible for their emotions, their struggles, and even their mistakes. It sounds like this: I can't believe you would do this to me after everything I've done for you. If you really cared about me, you would help me. Wow, I guess I just don't matter to you anymore. The goal of guilt tripping is simple: to make you feel bad enough that you give in to what they want. They don't ask directly. They make you feel like saying no makes you a terrible person. How to break free. Recognize that you are not responsible for managing someone else's emotions. If you find yourself constantly giving in just to keep the peace or avoid feeling guilty, take a step back. A healthy relationship allows space for both people's needs, not just one. Two, gaslighting, making you question your own reality. Gaslighting is one of the most insidious forms of manipulation because it makes you doubt your own experiences, emotions, and even your sanity. A manipulator will rewrite history, deny things they've said or done, and make you feel like you're overreacting or imagining things. It sounds like this: I never said that. You must be remembering wrong. You're being way too sensitive. It's not a big deal. Why are you always making things up? You're acting crazy. Gaslighting makes you second guess yourself. You start to wonder if maybe you are overreacting. Maybe you did misunderstand. Maybe you are the problem. And once that doubt takes root, the manipulator gains control, because if you don't trust yourself, you'll start relying on them to tell you what's real. How to break free: trust your instincts. If something feels wrong, it probably is. Keep a journal, document conversations if necessary, and remind yourself that your emotions and experiences are valid. Healthy people don't make you question your own reality. 3. Love bombing. The high before the crash. Love bombing is a cycle of extreme affection followed by withdrawal. It's a strategy designed to hook you in, overwhelm you with attention, and make you dependent on the manipulator's approval. At first, they make you feel like the most special person in the world. They shower you with compliments, gifts, and constant attention. But once they have you emotionally invested, they pull away, cold, distant, uninterested. You're left wondering what changed, what did you do wrong, how do you get that affection back? And just when you're about to give up, they pull you back in with another wave of attention. It's an addictive cycle, one that keeps you chasing the high of their approval. How to break free? Pay attention to consistency. Real love doesn't come in waves, it's steady. If someone's affection feels extreme and too good to be true at first, but then suddenly disappears, that's a red flag. A healthy relationship doesn't leave you feeling emotionally whiplashed. 4P playing the victim, the permanent martyr act. Some manipulators always cast themselves as the victim, no matter the situation. Even when they hurt you, they find a way to twist the story so that somehow they're the ones who have been wronged. They refuse to take responsibility for their actions and instead make you feel like you should be apologizing. It sounds like this: I was just joking. You're making a big deal out of nothing. I had no choice but to do that. You backed me into a corner. Wow, I guess I'm just a terrible person. Maybe I should just leave. This tactic is designed to make you feel guilty for even standing up for yourself. You start to feel bad for them, even when they were the ones who hurt you, and before you know it, you're the one apologizing, just to smooth things over. How to break free? Hold people accountable. Everyone makes mistakes, but a healthy person will own up to them, not twist the situation to make themselves the victim. If someone never takes responsibility, they don't deserve your emotional energy. 5, the silent treatment, punishing you with absence. Manipulators know that sometimes the most powerful way to control someone isn't through words, it's through silence. The silent treatment is a form of emotional punishment. Instead of addressing an issue, they withdraw completely, making you feel anxious, uncertain, and desperate for their attention. The unspoken message is clear: if you don't do what I want, I will withhold love, approval, and connection. You might find yourself apologizing, even when you didn't do anything wrong, just to break the silence. You might beg them to talk to you just to restore a sense of normalcy. And that's exactly what they want, to make you so uncomfortable that you'll do anything to regain their approval. How to break free? Recognize the difference between someone needing space to process their emotions and someone using silence as a weapon. If someone constantly shuts you out as a way to manipulate your behavior, step back. Healthy relationships involve communication, not punishment. Breaking free from manipulation, the first step to breaking free from manipulation is recognizing the patterns. When you start noticing these behaviors in someone, don't ignore the warning signs. Manipulation thrives in confusion, in self-doubt, and in the belief that you have to tolerate it. But you don't. You are not responsible for managing someone else's emotions. You are not obligated to meet unrealistic expectations. And most importantly, you do not have to shrink yourself or sacrifice your well-being to keep someone else comfortable. Healthy relationships are built on honesty, mutual respect, and genuine care. They don't require you to walk on eggshells. They don't make you question your worth, and they certainly don't make you feel like love, friendship, or support is something you have to earn. If someone in your life is using these patterns of manipulation to control you, it's time to reclaim your power. Step back, set boundaries, and remind yourself you deserve relationships where you are valued, not just used. When someone continuously uses you, whether through manipulation, emotional neglect, or transactional relationships, it doesn't just hurt in the moment, it changes you. It alters the way you see yourself, how you show up in relationships, and what you believe you deserve. The most dangerous thing about being used is that It doesn't just drain your energy, it drains your self-worth. At first, you might not even notice it happening. You might brush off the red flags, make excuses for their behavior, and tell yourself that things will change. But over time, a quiet erosion begins. The repeated experience of being overlooked, undervalued, and taken advantage of starts to reshape the way you see yourself. Let's talk about how that toll manifests and how to reclaim your self-worth before it's lost. You start believing you're only valuable when you're useful. When someone only shows up when they need something from you, it sends a dangerous message. Your worth is tied to what you can provide, not who you are. And if you hear that message enough, you start internalizing it. You begin to believe that your presence alone isn't enough, that you have to be helpful, agreeable, or giving in order to be wanted. You start defining yourself by your ability to meet other people's needs. And before you know it, you measure your worth by how much you can do for others. This is how people get trapped in unhealthy relationships, because when your identity becomes wrapped up in being the helper or the reliable one, it feels terrifying to set boundaries. The idea of saying no or stepping back feels like losing your purpose. But here's the truth. You are valuable even when you are not being useful to someone else. Your worth is not measured by how much you give. You deserve love, respect, and care simply because you exist, not because you serve a function in someone else's life. 2, you develop a fear of saying no when you've been conditioned to believe that people only stick around when you're giving to them. Saying no feels dangerous. It feels like rejection. It feels like the moment you stop meeting their needs, they will leave. And often that fear is reinforced. When you finally set a boundary, manipulators react in one of 2 ways. Guilt-tripping you. Wow, I guess I just don't matter to you anymore. Punishing you with distance. They suddenly go cold, making you feel like you did something wrong. These reactions can make you question yourself. Am I being selfish? Should I just do what they want? Is it worth losing them over this? But here's what you need to remember. The people who only value you when you say yes never truly valued you in the first place. Real relationships don't fall apart when you set boundaries. The right people will respect your needs. And if someone only sticks around when you're saying yes to everything, they were never in your life for you. They were in it for what you could give. 3, you start ignoring your own needs when you spend all your time catering to others. Something happens. You stop prioritizing yourself. Your own emotions, struggles, and needs take a back seat. You start putting other people's comfort above your own well-being. You get used to being the one who listens, supports, and gives, but when it comes to you needing those things, you hesitate. You tell yourself, I don't want to bother anyone. You convince yourself other people have bigger problems than I do. You minimize your struggles, thinking, I'll be fine, I don't need help. But here's the problem. You are a person too. Your needs, your feelings, and your well-being matter just as much as anyone else's. And if the people around you don't make space for your needs, then those are not the right people for you. Ignoring yourself doesn't make you selfless. It makes you exhausted, depleted, and disconnected from your own worth. And the longer you go without prioritizing yourself, the harder it becomes to remember that you deserve care too. 4, you start settling for less in every area of life. When you get used to being treated as an afterthought, that mindset doesn't just stay in one relationship. It spills into everything. You accept friends who don't check in on you. You stay in relationships where your needs are unmet. You tolerate disrespect from coworkers or bosses. You convince yourself that you should be grateful for any attention, even if it's inconsistent or shallow. Little by little, you lower your standards. You stop expecting reciprocity. You start believing that being half appreciated is better than not being appreciated at all. And this is one of the most damaging effects of being used. It teaches you to settle. But you were never meant to settle. You were never meant to exist in relationships where you constantly have to prove your worth. You were never meant to live in a way where your self-esteem depends on how much you can give to others. You are worthy of respect. You are worthy of care. You are worthy of more. 5, you lose sight of who you are when you spend too much time being what other people need you to be. You can forget who you are. You've spent so much energy being the strong one, the reliable one, or the giver, that you don't even know what you want anymore. What do you enjoy? What do you need? What kind of people make you feel safe and loved? It's easy to get lost when your identity has been shaped around being useful to others. But you are more than your role in someone else's life. You are more than your ability to help. You are more than what you can provide. And it's time to start reclaiming yourself, how to rebuild your self-worth. If you've been stuck in patterns where people have used you, manipulated you, or made you feel invisible, you don't have to stay there. You can rebuild your self-worth, but it takes intentional steps. Start saying no without guilt. Your needs matter just as much as anyone else's. Surround yourself with people who reciprocate. Real friendships and relationships involve give and take. Relearn how to listen to yourself. What do you actually want? What makes you happy? What drains you? Stop settling for less than you deserve. If someone consistently makes you feel unseen or unimportant, you don't have to keep them in your life. Remind yourself daily you are enough, not because of what you do for others, but simply because you are. Final thoughts. You deserve more. Being used takes a toll, not just on your emotions, but on the way you see yourself. It teaches you to overextend, to tolerate the bare minimum, and to believe that your worth is conditional. But the truth is this: you are worthy, you are enough, and you don't have to prove that to anyone. You don't need to be endlessly useful to deserve love. You don't need to give until you have nothing left just to be valued. You deserve relationships where you are appreciated, not just for what you offer, but for who you are. And if someone in your life doesn't see that, then it's time to ask yourself, why am I fighting for space in the life of someone who won't make space for me? Choosing self-respect is one of the hardest yet most necessary decisions you will ever make. It requires you to break free from patterns that have kept you small, to challenge the belief that your worth is tied to how much you give, and to stop tolerating relationships that drain you. It's not easy, especially when you've spent years being the one who gives, compromises, and makes excuses for people who take you for granted. But there comes a moment when you realize that staying in situations where you are used and unappreciated costs far more than walking away. Self-respect isn't about being selfish. It's about recognizing that you are just as worthy of care, kindness, and consideration as anyone else. It's about no longer allowing yourself to be the person everyone calls when they need something, but forgets when you need support. It's about setting a new standard for how you are treated, one that honors your worth instead of diminishing it. But what does choosing self-respect look like in real life? Let's explore what it means, why it's so difficult, and how to stand firm in it. 1, realizing that being used is not love. One of the biggest reasons people tolerate being used is because they mistake it for connection. They think that because someone keeps coming back, there must be something real between them. But here's the truth. Being needed is not the same as being valued. Someone can rely on you without ever truly appreciating you. They can call you when they need something, but never check in when you're struggling. They can take everything you offer without ever giving anything in return. That is not love. That is dependence, convenience, and selfishness. Love, whether in friendships, family, or romantic relationships, is about mutual care, and respect. It's about being there for each other, not just one person doing all the giving while the other person takes. Choosing self-respect means recognizing the difference between genuine love and conditional attention, the kind that only exists when it benefits the other person. 2, understanding that saying no is an act of self-worth. If you've spent your life accommodating others, setting boundaries feels unnatural. It feels harsh, even wrong. That's because for so long, your worth has been tied to your ability to be helpful, agreeable, and available. But choosing self-respect means learning that you are not obligated to meet everyone's needs at the expense of your own. Saying no is not cruel, it is not unkind, it is not selfish. It is a declaration of self-worth. You are allowed to say no when someone asks for your time, but never respects yours. You are allowed to say no when someone expects emotional support, but never gives it back. You are allowed to say no when being available to others means abandoning yourself. And the people who truly value you will respect your boundaries. The ones who don't, they were never in your life for you. They were in it for what you could provide. 3, breaking the cycle of guilt. One of the hardest parts of choosing self-respect is dealing with the guilt that follows. Guilt whispers, you're being mean, you're abandoning them, you should just let it go. But that guilt doesn't come from doing something wrong. It comes from being conditioned to believe that your needs don't matter. It comes from years of prioritizing others so much that standing up for yourself feels unnatural. Here's what you need to remind yourself. You are not responsible for other people's reactions to your boundaries. If someone gets angry because you refuse to be used, that's their issue, not yours. You are not a bad person for choosing yourself. The only people who will call you selfish are the ones who benefited from your self-neglect. You deserve relationships that don't require self-sacrifice. Love and respect should not be something you have to earn through endless giving. The guilt will come, but it will pass. And on the other side of it, you will find something much more powerful, freedom. 4, learning to walk away without looking back. When you start choosing self-respect, some people won't like it. The ones who benefited from your self-sacrifice will push back. They might try to guilt trip you, manipulate you, or act as if you are the one who is being unfair. They might say things like, you've changed, yes, and that's a good thing. I guess I just don't matter to you anymore. You do, but I matter too. You're being selfish. No, I'm setting a boundary. It's tempting to go back, to make excuses for their behavior, to believe that maybe this time they'll change, but they won't. People who only value you when you are useful to them do not suddenly develop real appreciation. The only way to break free is to walk away and mean it. Not every relationship is meant to be kept. Some exist only to teach you what you will no longer tolerate. And when someone has shown you time and time again that they will only take from you, believe